I started driving Uber the month our emergency fund stopped being an emergency fund and turned into a memory. I'm 44, suburban New Jersey, 2 kids, 1 mortgage, 1 aging Honda that I kept telling myself would make it another year. I'd been an office manager at a small commercial HVAC company for a decade until the owner sold to a bigger outfit and they consolidated admin. They offered me a modest severance and a smile. I did what I always do under pressure. Spreadsheets, lists, quiet breathing. Dana, my wife, kept saying we'd be fine if we stayed disciplined. The discipline part was my job, apparently. Gas, groceries, orthodontist payments, her prescription copays, property taxes. Everything had a due date, like it was personally offended by our situation. Uber wasn't prideful, but it was cash flow. I told myself it was temporary. I told everyone else it was flexible. I drove mornings and late afternoons because those were the hours people paid to be moved quickly, and I needed every dollar to behave. Most riders were ghosts with body heat. Headphones, phone calls, silence. I learned to watch the little things that meant money: airport rides, corporate buildings, guys in clean shoes. One Tuesday in late September, I got a pickup at a hotel near the mall. Name on the app, G. He walked out like he belonged anywhere he stood. Mid-50s, neat haircut, laptop bag, calm eyes that didn't dart around. He slid in the back and asked, polite, if I could take the parkway instead of local roads. Sure, I said, already doing the mental math of tolls versus time. He asked how my morning was, and I gave the safe answer. Then he asked, you do this full time? I said, right now, yes. There was a pause that felt weighted. Right now made him nod like he'd heard it before. He asked what I did before driving. When I told him, he didn't say sorry like people do. He asked what systems I ran. Payroll? Invoicing? Vendor accounts? That's when my grip tightened on the wheel without me meaning to. I tried to keep it casual, but I answered. I explained how I tracked receivables, handled late-paying contractors, negotiated payment terms, and kept the owner from making impulsive purchases that wrecked cash flow. He listened the way some people listen to sports stats, like it matters. We hit a patch of stop and go, and I felt that familiar tightness in my jaw from holding back worry. He said, you seem careful. Not a compliment, an observation. Then he asked if I was comfortable with sensitive financial information. I almost laughed, because my entire life had become sensitive financial information. I said yes. He asked if I had a criminal record. I said no. He asked if my credit was clean. That question landed like a cold coin on my tongue. I lied in a calm voice. It's fine, I said, because I needed it to be fine. He didn't challenge me, just looked out the window and said, interesting. When we pulled up to a glass office building in Newark, he didn't get out right away. He said, give me your email. I'm hiring. I pulled into a side street after the drop-off and just sat there with my hands on the wheel, feeling sweat gather under my collar. I checked my phone. A new email came in before I even left the neighborhood. Short, professional, from Gordon L. He was an operations manager at a regional distribution company. He wrote that he'd like to schedule a call. He included a line that made my stomach dip. Role requires background and credit review due to access to vendor payments. I forwarded it to Dana and added, this could be big. She called immediately, voice low because she was at work, and I could hear her trying not to hope too loudly. How big? She whispered. I said I didn't know yet. That night we ate leftover pasta and talked in careful numbers. If the salary was what I thought, we could stop floating bills on credit cards. We could maybe rebuild savings, fix the Honda, stop the constant low-grade panic. I went to bed with that stupid, dangerous feeling, relief before anything had happened. The next day, Gordon called. He was direct. He asked about my experience, my comfort with spreadsheets, my ability to say no to people who wanted exceptions. I told him I was good at being the bad guy if it protected the business. He chuckled like he understood. Then he explained the job. Vendor onboarding, payment approvals, managing chargebacks, keeping their budget from leaking. The money words made me lean in. He said, "I'm looking for someone who won't get starry-eyed or guilt into bad decisions." I said, "That's me." Without thinking, he told me HR would contact me and that he was moving fast. After the call, I opened our accounts to get paperwork ready, bank statements, proof of address, the usual. I wanted to feel prepared, in control. That's when I saw the first thing I couldn't place. A personal loan balance in Dana's name I didn't remember agreeing to. $24,000. Monthly payment, $536. My mouth went dry, like my body knew before my brain did that something had shifted. I stared at the loan entry until the screen blurred. I checked the date it opened. 6 months ago, right around when my company started cutting hours before the sale. I called Dana at lunch and tried to sound neutral. "Hey, quick question," I said. "Did we take out a loan?" There was a beat of silence. Too long for a normal, "What are you talking about?" Then she said softly, "I meant to tell you." I felt heat creep up my neck. "For what?" I asked. She said, "To cover bills. The mortgage. The kids' stuff. When your checks got smaller." Her voice had that exhausted edge that makes you feel cruel for asking. I wanted to believe her, so I did. I told myself this was marriage. Messy, practical, imperfect. I asked why she didn't tell me. She said she didn't want to add to my stress. And that sounded loving enough to pass. Still, I took a screenshot of the loan details. I told myself it was for the HR packet. It wasn't. HR emailed a formal application and disclosure forms. In bold, credit check authorization. I sat at the kitchen table with the documents and my coffee went cold while I watched my hand sign my name. Felt like betting with money I didn't have. When Dana came home, I tried again to get specifics. "How did the loan money get used?" I asked. She opened the fridge, moved things around like she was searching for an answer. "Just expenses," she said. It went fast. I asked if she had statements. She said, "Not on me." The next morning, I pulled our joint savings up on my phone, and my stomach dropped hard enough I had to swallow. It was down to $3,200. We'd had almost $17,000 at the start of the year. There were transfers out that I didn't recognize. Multiple, neat amounts under $2,000, like someone was trying not to trigger alarms. The description, external transfer. No recipient name. My fingers tingled. That was twist number 1 becoming twist number 2. And I didn't have language for it yet. When I confronted Dana about the transfers, she didn't raise her voice. That would have been easier. She just sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped, and said, "It's complicated. Complicated is what people call it when the truth is ugly, but they want you to accept it anyway." I asked, "Where did the money go?" She stared at the carpet. "To my brother," she said. My chest tightened like a belt being pulled. Her brother, Eric, has been starting over since I met him. New job, new hustle, new crisis. Dana said he'd gotten behind on rent and his truck payment, and he'd been calling her crying, saying he couldn't breathe, saying he was one mistake away. She said she couldn't sleep knowing he might do something desperate. I felt 2 things at once, anger and shame for feeling it. "How much?" I asked. She whispered, "I don't know. A lot." That was the moment awareness started creeping in, slow and sick. Money wasn't just tight. Money was being moved without me. I did something I'm not proud of. I checked Dana's email when she left her laptop open. I told myself it was to understand our finances, to protect our kids. I also knew it was betrayal. There were threads with Eric screenshots of betting slips, frantic messages, promises. Not just rent, sports betting, online casinos. Just need to hit once, he'd written. Dana had replied with bank transfer confirmations. I didn't understand the earlier transfers until I saw those little PDF receipts. The amounts matched. My stomach churned and my hands started shaking, small tremors that made the mouse jitter. There was also an email from a debt settlement company. Dana had enrolled us in a program to reduce credit obligations. The monthly draft was $480. I hadn't noticed because it looked like a utility payment. Twist 3. She wasn't just helping her brother. She was rearranging our entire financial life around secrets, and I was the idiot tracking Uber mileage like it mattered. When I confronted her with what I found, she cried quietly, the kind that makes you feel like a monster for being angry. She admitted Eric had lost a lot, more than she ever told me. She said she kept thinking one more transfer would stabilize him, that he'd pay her back once he got a job. I asked if she understood what she'd done to our credit. She said, I was trying to keep us afloat. And I heard the way she said, us like a shield. Anger came next, but it came out controlled. I didn't yell. I got colder. I told her to call Eric on speaker. She did. Eric answered like he'd been waiting. When Dana said we couldn't send money anymore, he laughed. A short, ugly sound and said, tell your Uber husband I'll pay when I can. My jaw clenched so hard my teeth hurt. I took the phone and told him if he didn't start paying back, I'd report the transfers as fraud. There was a long pause. Then he said, you can try, and hung up. HR scheduled my final interview and requested I sign the credit authorization. I almost didn't. I sat there with the form, pen hovering, feeling the weight of every secret line item. Dana promised me it was over. She swore she'd cut Eric off, cancel the settlement plan, close any hidden accounts. That promise felt like a rope tossed down a well. I wanted to grab it. We spent a weekend making a debt list. The loan, the cards, the settlement draft, the depleted savings. She acted cooperative, almost relieved to stop lying. I felt guilt mixed with relief, like I'd finally turned on the lights even if the room was disgusting. We froze our credit. We set up alerts. We agreed seriously that every transfer required both of us. For a week, it felt like a false resolution. I even caught myself humming while I made coffee, which made me hate myself a little. Then a letter arrived from the IRS addressed to me about unreported income tied to my Social Security number. My hands went numb. I read the IRS notice 3 times before the words made sense. There were 1,099s I'd never seen. Income from gig platforms and consulting payments. At first I thought identity theft. Then I looked at Dana. Her face went pale in a way that felt like an answer. Dana, I said, and my voice sounded distant, like it belonged to a neighbor. She sat down slowly, eyes wet but steady. Eric used your information, she whispered, just to set up an account. He said it was temporary. Twist 4, and it recolored everything. The way Gordon asked about credit, the way money kept vanishing in neat chunks, the way Dana insisted it was complicated. She admitted she'd given Eric my Social Security number and scanned my driver's license from the drawer. She said he needed a way to cash out winnings without garnishment because his accounts were overdrawn. My stomach dropped so hard I had to press my palm against the table to steady myself. You let him use my name, I said. She nodded once. Tiny. I thought he'd stop. Gordon's HR called the next day. I could hear the polite smile in her voice as she said they were rescinding the offer due to risk factors identified in the screening process. She didn't say IRS. She didn't say fraud. She didn't have to. I thanked her like an adult and hung up, then sat in my car in the driveway and stared at the steering wheel until my vision blurred. Shame was a physical thing then. Heat in my face, tight throat, a sour taste. I'd lied to Gordon about my credit because I didn't want to lose the chance, and now the chance was gone anyway. That night Dana kept apologizing, over and over, like repetition could refill our savings. I didn't comfort her. I also didn't leave. Instead, I did something worse. I called a lawyer about filing charges against Eric, not because I wanted justice, but because I wanted leverage. The lawyer asked if I had proof. I said yes, and felt my stomach twist at how prepared I'd been to document my own marriage. Eric texted me after Dana told him I'd spoken to an attorney. "Do what you gotta do," he wrote, followed by a photo. My signature on a platform consent form. It looked like mine. It wasn't. He'd practiced it, or Dana had helped, or both. I felt anger surge, and underneath it, a sharp guilt, because some part of me felt relieved to finally have a clear villain. It's easier to hate Eric than to sit with what Dana did or what I ignored. I filed an identity theft report and started the IRS fraud process, but it didn't erase the tax bill overnight. It just started a long, slow bureaucracy. Dana and I stopped talking about feelings and started talking about deadlines. Payment plans, affidavits, bank disputes. She moved into the guest room without drama. The house got quieter, not peaceful, just muted, like we were both trying not to trigger another collapse. I drove more, slept less, watched my app earnings, and felt nothing. It's been 8 months. We're still married on paper because divorcing costs money we don't have, and because the kids still need rides to practice and someone to sign school forms. Dana works extra shifts. I drive Uber like it's my real job now, because it is. The IRS sends letters with calm fonts that make my skin crawl. Eric disappeared, then resurfaced when he needed something, then disappeared again. Some nights I lie awake listening to the refrigerator hum and think about Gordon in my back seat, asking if I was careful, and how proud I felt when he noticed. I thought careful meant responsible. Now I think careful can also mean blind, careful with receipts, careful with tone, careful not to look too closely at the people you love. I keep my old severance spreadsheet on my laptop even though it's useless now. The numbers are frozen in time, tidy columns, little plans that never happened. Sometimes, without meaning to, I open it and stare at the cell where I wrote savings. 17,042 in bold. The cursor still blinks there, patient and stupid, like it's waiting for me to type the money back. I want to add this because people keep asking how it ended, and the truth is it didn't end so much as it thinned out like fog lifting without revealing anything better underneath. The goodbye wasn't dramatic. No packed suitcases lined up by the door. No slammed frames or shouted confessions. It happened on a Tuesday night because Tuesdays are cheap and ordinary and don't pretend to be anything else. Dana stood in the hallway with her coat already on, keys in her hand, like she'd rehearsed the weight of them. She said she was going to stay with her sister for a while, and we both knew a while meant until money forced another decision. I nodded. I even helped her zip her bag when it stuck, my fingers steady in a way that surprised me. She said, "I never meant to ruin you." I said, "I know," even though I didn't know what that sentence meant anymore. Intent stopped mattering somewhere around the forged signature. She hugged the kids longer than me. When she hugged me, it was careful, like we were co-workers violating a policy. I noticed her perfume had changed. I didn't comment. I noticed everything and said almost nothing. After she left, the house felt wrong-sized. Too much air in the rooms. I walked through and turned off lights she hadn't used, straightened a chair she hadn't touched. Control habits die hard. At the kitchen table, I found a single envelope she'd left behind. Inside was a handwritten list of accounts, balances, passwords. At the bottom she'd written, "I'm sorry I made you carry this alone." I sat there a long time holding that paper, feeling both seen and completely abandoned. Later that night, I took one last Uber ride request before logging off. Just muscle memory. When I pulled away from the curb, I realized I was driving with no destination in mind. No one waiting, no version of the future that balanced. The app chirped, the car moved, and for the first time in months, there was nothing left to negotiate. I didn't cry. I just drove until the gas light came on, then turned back, already calculating what tomorrow would cost.